It's been almost 10 years since we last seen Ted. He was one of the funniest characters to come out of the 2010s. For a long time, we all thought Ted's moment of fame had passed. Well, now he's back in a new TV series. In some respects, it has more laughs than the movies and tries the most jokes. For those who don't know, Ted is a story about a teddy bear that comes to life after a boy named John Bennett wishes on a shooting star. The two of them become best friends that last into their adulthood, and that's pretty much all you need to know. When the first movie came out, you have no idea how hyped I was to see this movie from the second I saw the trailer. I just knew I had to see this movie. June 29 could not come any faster. The only problem was that, well, I was only 13 years old, and my mom wouldn't let me go see a movie about a talking teddy bear that drank beer and smoked weed, and especially since it was from the creator of Family Guy. And no matter how hard I tried to convince her, I had to wait months till it came out on DVD. I eventually did watch the movie after it came out on DVD, and boy, I surely won't be forgetting the first time seeing this. I absolutely loved this movie, and it's still one of my favorite comedy movies to this day, and it also made me a fan of Mark Wahlberg. Like, sure, it wasn't the best thing in the world, but it wasn't that bad either. The movie got pretty good reviews too, and did pretty well at the box office, making $500 million, becoming the highest grossing comedy film of 2012. Then when Ted 2 came out, I was really excited to see Ted make a comeback to the big screen, and June again couldn't come any sooner, and oh wait, that's right, still couldn't see it. This one, I remember I wasn't really as hyped as I was with the first one. I eventually did watch it about a year or so after it came out, and while I thought it was as funny as the first one, I kind of forgot what the movie was even about until I just rewatched it. Like, the movie has its funny moments, but the problem with Ted 2 is that it has too many storylines, and it feels more like a massive TV episode than a movie. I personally felt Ted 2 to be entertaining, but I feel like the first one was more heartfelt. Ted 2 only made half of what the first movie did, and it mostly got mixed reviews. While it was a box office success, it didn't meet the same numbers as the first one, and we wouldn't see Ted for quite a while, with many people wondering if Seth MacFarlane would ever make a third Ted movie. Then in 2021, it was announced that Ted would be returning in a new TV series for Peacock? The fuck is Peacock? I don't know why they couldn't just air this on Fox or NBC like a regular TV show. Now, my thoughts were a bit skeptical when I first heard about a Ted prequel series because it wasn't going to feature Mark Wahlberg or any of the original cast besides Seth. But I am going to say, once I saw the trailer, I got that same excitement again I did when the first movie came out.
Sexual education. Let's start with masturbation.
If you're gonna assign homework, Johnny already did it this morning.
Hey, shut the fuck up, dude!
The show takes place in 1993, after the opening credits in the first Ted movie, basically showing John and Ted as teenagers in high school and them doing with things like their first experience doing drugs and talking to girls. And that's pretty much all it is. It's just a prequel series to the original Ted movies. And I always did wonder what were John and Ted like as teenagers before we saw them as adults in the movies. So I'm glad they finally give us that story here. The visual effects on Ted, I gotta say, is really some of the best CGI that I've seen in a TV show, where sometimes you even forget that these actors are acting against something that isn't even there. One of the things that I really liked about Ted from the movies was how through time, you see that he's aged, like he loses some patches of fur or has some notable wear across his plush figure. But in the TV show, we still see him like he's in new condition with no wear or tear, and I really like that they did small details like that. Another thing I noticed about Ted here is that he's less cynical than he is in the movies. Like, he's still up to his usual antics, but I guess you can say he still acts a little naive here, which makes sense since he's still not fully developed into the character we see him in the movies. Max Burkholder, who plays a young John Bennett, I gotta say he did a really good job on capturing a younger version of Mark, and his impression on Mark Wahlberg is really spot on.
Taking Laurie to dinner.
For what?
Well, we've been dating 4 years tomorrow.
I haven't smoked, I haven't had sex, I haven't had a girlfriend. Clive's right, I'm a fucking loser.
The new characters are also very likable. I really like Blair, who's John's older cousin, and that's like the voice of the reason for the family. John's parents, Susan and Maddie, also gave me some laughs. Now at first, it didn't make sense to me why they got new actors to play his parents than the ones we saw in the first movie, but after seeing how this takes place in the 90s, it makes sense why. You can tell Seth was really trying to make this feel like a sitcom from the 90s, with the bond that reflects on what a common husband and wife relationship was like in the 80s, where Maddie's like the uptight asshole husband that kind of reminds you of Archie Bunker, and Susan is a more sweet, submissive wife that rarely speaks up, which is something you don't really see in most TV shows today.
I mean, you do this all the time. You silence her voice, you belittle her, you cut her down, you treat her like shit.
I do not. I love my fucking wife, and she knows it, don't you, Susan?
I can't believe you'd make her pay rent.
The humor is also very funny, especially in today's age where we have modern sensibilities, where it can be offensive on multiple levels, but that's part of the humor's appeal. It's funny because it's offensive and the obscurity is hilarious, but it's also got heart and charm. If you grew up watching a lot of family sitcoms from the 80s and 90s, like Full House and whatnot, it really does have that feel of older sitcoms, but with a lot of cussing. The show also does a great job on his 90s nostalgic references in pop culture and his political views of different generations, and that's where I feel like the show has more laughs than the movies.
Stop talking.
I mean, if I was a homophobe, wouldn't I see a gay guy and be like, ah, a gay guy, run!
I gotta say, probably my favorite episode is the fourth one, which is the Halloween one. In the majority of that episode, John and Ted spend time away from each other, which is a major aspect throughout the show, how Ted is John's only friend. It focuses more on Ted and Blair on them putting the differences aside and working together, while also showing John learning to enjoy every moment of his life, even without Ted. And they do a great job on showing growth on these characters.
It was kind of nice to see if I could actually have fun on my own.
That sounds healthy. Like growth.
Yeah, it felt like growth.
You grew. You grew tonight.
I really did.
My only biggest issue with the show is the episode count. Like, I don't mind the length time of the episodes, but 7 episodes in the season is not enough. You can literally watch the entire season in just one sitting, and with only 7 episodes, it just leaves me wanting more. Like, seriously, they really need to bring back 20 episode seasons, and like even the Orville got more episodes. And I really do hope that the show gets renewed for a second season with even more episodes, because if Family Guy and American Dad can get more than 10 seasons, then I don't see why Ted can't. Now, I'm not saying Ted should go as long as those shows, but I think at least 3 to 5 seasons would be a good run for Ted, and hopefully we can finally get a Ted 3. But for what it was worth, I still enjoyed it, and it's actually kind of sweet. If you're a fan of the first 2 Ted movies, I think you'll be satisfied with what you find here. But if you've never seen Ted before, I definitely would say start with the movies first.